If you don't know this about me, I am a really big fan of horror movies. I love watching old horror movies, new ones in the theater, classy ones, trashy ones, A24 ones, good, bad, anything in between. If I hear about a horror film, chances are I'm going to want to see it at some point. It's a genre that I just find endlessly entertaining and hilarious even when it's not scary. So, unsurprisingly, I'm also a huge fan of the Until Dawn video game from 2015. It's an almost shockingly clever game that plays with classic horror tropes and scrambles them around in a way that keeps you on your toes and invested in the story, which on the surface is a very generic narrative with this group of hot college students going up to one of their rich parents' luxury cabins on a mountain and discovering that they are indeed in grave danger and must survive well until dawn. You have a final girl, a comic relief asshole, a couple of mean girls, a sweet nerdy couple, a token black man marked for death, and Rami Malek. But it's the way the game plays with these tropes and generic horror movie threats like ghosts and serial killers and saw traps and Native American curses and spooky abandoned buildings that makes it special. The setup is intentionally generic and pays homage to all these things, but that's only to throw you off the scent and open the story up for subversion. The player is able to elevate many of the characters beyond what they would usually be reduced to in film. Plus, it's one of the only games like it that sells itself on player choice that actually follows through on that promise. You actually have agency over what happens to all the people in it. I'm looking at you, Telltale. Point being, I am a really big fan of the game, and when I heard they were doing an official movie adaptation, I was actually pretty excited for it. I mean, they have this great premise already teed up for them. It's right there. But then I saw the trailer. Now, in almost every case, I'm not against changing things from an original work for a film adaptation. In fact, I very much encourage it. Certain things that work in books or video games or TV shows or comics simply don't work in film, and changing things to fit the medium you're adapting it into makes an adaptation more worthy of existing, in my opinion. If you're just going to do a one-to-one shot-for-shot remake of an existing thing, there really isn't any value in that, as we already have that original material. I mean, what's the point? But this movie is one of those rare times where I am genuinely kind of irritated that they didn't just adapt the story of the game wholesale for it. I mean, that's kind of the advantage of adapting a game like Until Dawn. Similar to something like The Last of Us, it's more of a movie or a TV show than it ever was a game to begin with. The worst parts of those games are the more video gamey moments. No one played The Last of Us for its superior ladder moving gameplay. It's about the story, so that's what an adaptation should be focused on. But this movie doesn't just not adapt the story of the game, it's just an entirely different type of thing altogether, which is weird because the premise of this movie is actually pretty good. As far as horror movie gimmicks go, it's really clever and interesting. It makes for a fun concept. The idea that these people are stuck in a time loop where they relive the same night over and over again until they can survive the whole night, and they learn new things as they go and get smarter and learn how to counter different parts of the nightmare and get less scared and more ballsy, is really awesome. But that's just not Until Dawn, and that's fine. But why then even bother using the name of that game? It's just confusing. I mean, sure, the game has like some level of name recognition, but it's not like some all-time classic video game IP like Resident Evil or something. It's not fucking Halo or Zelda. Slapping the name Until Dawn on a movie is not some slam dunk box office guarantee. I'm sure it'll get some people out to the theater on name alone, but you know what would draw even more people out if it was an actual adaptation of the video game. Now, I wouldn't have as much of a problem with this if the movie wasn't so clearly made by people who are very much aware of the game and have obviously played it, because make no mistake, this movie is littered with references to the game. The serial killer, the Wendigos, the hourglass, the loose story about someone's sister being dead, the mining accident backstory. So much of these surface level things are there. Hell, Peter Stormare in his psychiatrist office is literally a one-to-one recreation of how it looks in the game. It is unmistakably inspired by it in so many ways, but only in the way things look or are designed. It's an Until Dawn skin slapped onto a totally different movie, which again is just confusing and annoying because it ends up dragging down both properties. the game is only pulled from in the most obvious and generic ways, so it feels totally underused and disrespected, and the actual original movie here doesn't get a chance to pave its own way because the whole thing exists under the shadow of this other thing that has nothing to do with it. If this movie was just called something else and was able to fully explore its, again, genuinely interesting and unique premise, it would be so much better off because, if anything, the worst parts of it are all the parts that have to do with the game. Take Peter Stormare, for example. In the game, he's not actually a real character. I mean, he's a real person, but we only see him in the form of what's revealed to be a manifestation of the inner thoughts of the character of Josh based on his psychiatrist. He's there to give the player a window into Josh's mind and also comment on how the player is interacting with the other characters. In the movie, though, they take that same character and turn him into the man in charge of the time loop, which just makes the whole thing confusing. Like, does he have powers over it? Did he create it? And if so, how? Does he also relive the same night forever? Why do the monsters not attack him when he can be killed by the same things that can kill the victims? If this is all actually made up by the main girl, how does he have influence over any of it? It just makes no sense. Frankly, you don't need this character to exist at all. It's not a story that requires a big bad. The bad guy is the curse itself, and victory is simply overcoming it and escaping it. Similarly, the Wendigos, which are a terrifying monster in the game whose presence also leads to a shocking reveal near the end, are pretty much just like generic zombies in this. They're just these messed up ghoul-like people. Plus, in the game, they also work as this wonderful subversion to the initial threat of the psycho killer character that turns out to not be a serious threat at all, and you realize that while some characters have been getting pranked this whole time, other ones have been dealing with actual monsters. It's really cool and works and makes those things that much scarier. All of these elements in the game have meaning and play off each other to form this wonderful cohesive narrative. In the movie though, all these things are just there to remind you of the game, but they have no significance outside of that. The Wendigos could be ghosts or zombies, and the killer guy isn't anyone. It's just some random generic nameless asshole. They're all just meaningless enemies to throw at our heroes. Now, a reasonable counterpoint to everything I just said is that this movie is not trying to be the game, and it's simply lifting some familiar elements from it to use in its own unique story, and for the vast majority of its runtime, that was my overall thoughts on it. It's not super high art or anything, but for what it is, it was fine. David F. Sandberg is a decent director and made a fun enough movie. Whatever. But then, at the end, when our main character confronts Peter Stormare, they specifically tease the story of the video game as existing in the same world as the movie. They show a picture of not Rami Malek as a character of Josh, confirming he's a patient of Peter Stormare, and the very last scene is a TV in Peter Stormare's office suddenly cutting to footage of the lodge from the game, and also plays a soundbite of the whistling Josh does in it. But if the story of this movie is part of this world's lore, which it obviously is, it makes the story of the game that I guess they're now setting up impossible, because all of this movie's logic is directly in conflict with it. It's a different thing entirely, which again, I was willing to accept, but now that they're just trying to shift back to the game randomly at the end for the purposes of sequel bait, it ruins both things. It's all just so very stupid. Either do your own spin on the material or adapt the material as it existed in its original form. But you by definition cannot do both. So while yes, this movie is overall fine and watchable enough and not nearly as bad as I thought it could have been considering Hollywood's history with this kind of stuff, I just found it very frustrating. There's not that many games out there that would make an easier movie adaptation than this, so I guess better luck next time? I'll tell you what though, Hollywood, if you want to make some of that sweet, sweet franchise money and bring out all the nerds, a real adaptation of Resident Evil is right there for you. I mean, could you imagine a big budget movie version of like Resident Evil 4 or Village? I mean, a man can dream. Anyway though, yeah, Until Dawn kind of blows, honestly. Though, I guess it could be worse, so that's something.